Have you recited the Mangalacharan?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, so we'll share the verse. We discussed last time the word Suyodhanam. We have discussed this 13th verse. Duryodhana was bereft of his fortune and duration of life because of the intricacy of ill advice given by Karna, Dushasana, and Saubala. When he lay on the ground with his followers, his thighs broken, although he was powerful, the Lord was not happy to see the scene. Anyone remembers why the Lord was not happy? We discussed this verse. Why was Lord not happy to see this scene? That Duryodhana lying on the with broken thighs on the ground. Anyone remembers? What is the reason Prabhupada cites? पढ़ा नहीं है किसी ने? No one has revised. I'll move to the next verse. कियान भुवो अयम शपीतरो भरो यद्रोना भीष्म अर्जुन भीम मूले अष्टदश अक्षौनिको मद अंशे अस्ते बलम दुर्विशाहम यदूनाम. After the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, the Lord said, the abatement of the earth's great burden, 18 Akshahunis have been affected with the help of Drona, Bhima, Arjuna, and Bhima. What are these 18 Akshahunis? The abatement of the earth's great burden, 18 Akshahunis have been affected. What it means? Why this number 18 Akshoni and the burden is being mentioned here? बताइए. What is this figure 18 Akshonis and the burden of earth? क्या है भाई? You have to reply, respond. Ravinder?
Yes, Prabhuji, these are the numbers of the soldiers who are fighting in the Kuru.
Voice is not clear.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, बोलिए. Yeah, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. These are the soldiers who are fought in the Kurukshetra battlefield.
They were all slain. This is what Sukdev Goswami is saying. That the abatement of the earth's great burden, 18 Akshonis had now been affected with the help of Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna, and Bhima. But what is this? There is still the great strength of Yadu dynasty born of myself, which may be more unbearable burden. So Krishna is thinking that 18 Akshonis have been slain on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. But what about the Yadu Vansha? The Kuru Vansha is over. But what about the Yadu Vansha? It is even more bigger burden. It is a wrong theory that due to an increase in population, the world becomes overburdened and therefore there are wars and other annihilating processes. The earth is never overburdened. The heaviest mountains and the oceans on the face of the earth hold more living entities than there are human beings, and they are not overburdened. If a census were taken of all living beings on the surface of the earth, certainly it would be found that the number of humans is not even 5% of the total number of living beings. This is amazing. Prabhupada is giving such details. That the human population is not even 5% of the entire species which exist on this planet Earth. If birth rate of human beings is increasing, then the birth rate of other living beings is increasing proportionately. The birth rate of lower animal, beast, aquatic birds, etc. is far greater than that of the human beings. There is an adequate arrangement for food for all the living beings all over the earth by the order of the Supreme Lord. And he can arrange more and more if there is actually a disproportionate increase of living beings. So Earth is never going to consider the increase of human population as burden. It is very insignificant. It is not even 5% of the total population. Therefore, there is no question of an increase in population causing a burden. The earth becomes overburdened due to dharmaglani or irregular discharge of Lord's desire. The Lord appeared on the earth to curb the increase of miscreants and not to increase in population, as is wrongly put forward by mundane economists. When Lord Krishna appeared, there had been a sufficient increase in miscreants who had violated the desire of the Lord. The material creation is meant for fulfilling the desire of the Lord. And his desire is that the conditioned souls who are unfit to enter into the kingdom of God have a chance to improve their conditions for entering. The entire process of cosmic arrangement is intended just to give a chance to the conditioned soul to enter the kingdom of God. This is the purpose of creation. And there is an adequate arrangement for the maintenance by the nature of the Lord. Therefore, although there may be great increase in population on the surface of the earth, if the people are exactly in line with God consciousness and are not miscreant, such a burden on the earth is a source of pleasure for us. There are two kinds of burden. Prabhupada explains. There is the burden of the beast and the burden of love. Very beautiful purport. The burden of beast is unbearable. Who is the example of burden of beast? Prabhupada gives examples elsewhere. Who is the example of burden of beast? Yes, Dashil Prabhu.
प्रभु जी, the कर्मी प्रभु जी, fruity workers.
Yes. And in particular, what example he gives? Prabhupada gives one more very graphic example, burden of beast. Very, very graphic. Manoram? Prabhupada says the humble, foolish animal called ass. Ass, a donkey, is an example of burden of beast. He agrees to carry loads and loads of cloth on his back. Why? Just to get little from his master. So burden of beast and burden of love. The burden of the beast is unbearable, but the burden of love is the source of pleasure. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti describes the burden of love very practically. He gives three examples. Here, very attentively. He says that the burden of the husband on the young wife, however heavy the husband may be, but the wife does not complain. Second, the burden of child on the lap of the mother. Mother never complained that the child is very bulky. She feeds the child. And there is the third, the burden of wealth on the businessman. Although actually burdens from the viewpoint of heaviness are source of pleasure, and in the absence of such burdensome objects, one may feel the burden of separation, which is heavier to bear than the actual burden of love. When Lord Krishna referred to the burden of Yadu dynasty on the earth, he referred something different than the burden of the beast. The large number of family members born of Lord Krishna counted to some millions and were certainly great increase in the population of the earth. He had in mind their imminent disappearance from the earth. All the members of the family of Lord Krishna were incarnations of different demigods, and they were to disappear from all the welfare. And they were to disappear from the surface of the earth along with the Lord. When he referred to the unbearable heaviness of the earth in connection to the Yadu dynasty, he was referring to the burden in their separation. Srila Jiva Goswami confirms this inference. Mitaha yada yesham bhavati vivado madhav amadatam madhav amadat amra vilochananam Mesham vadhopaya iyanatonyah mayudyante naradaha dahate swayam swam. When they quarrel among themselves, who quarrels among themselves? About whom is being talked about here?
Among Yadus, Prabhu.
Yes, Yadus, Krishna's own. When they quarrel amongst themselves, influenced by intoxication, their eyes red like copper because of drinking madhu, then only will they disappear. Otherwise, it will not be possible. On my disappearance, this incident will take place. So the Lord is telling, He is revealing how He wants to unwind His own people. The Lord and His associates appear and disappear by the will of the Lord. They are not subjected to the laws of material nature. And no one was able to kill the family of the Lord, nor was there any possibility of their natural death by the laws of nature. The only means, therefore, for the disappearance was the make show of fight amongst themselves, as if brawling in intoxication due to drinking. That so-called fighting would also take place by the will of the Lord. Otherwise, there would be no cause for their fighting. Just as Arjuna was made to be illusioned by family affection, and thus the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. So the Yadu dynasty was made to be intoxicated by the will of the Lord. Okay. So this is the larger plan of the Lord and nothing more. The devotees and associates of the Lord are completely surrendered souls. Thus, they are transcendental instruments in the hands of the Lord and can be used in any way the Lord desires. The pure devotees also enjoy such pastimes of the Lord because they want to see Him happy. Devotees of the Lord never assert independent individuality. The Lord and His associates appear and disappear by the will of the Lord. They are not subjected to the laws of material nature. No one was able to kill the family of the Lord, nor was there any possibility of their natural death by the laws of nature. The only means, therefore, for the disappearance was the make show of fight amongst themselves, as if brawling in intoxication due to drinking. That so-called fighting would also take place by the will of the Lord. Otherwise, there would be no cause for their fighting. Just as Arjuna was made to be illusioned by family affection, and thus the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. So the Yadu dynasty was made to be intoxicated by the will of the Lord and nothing more. The devotees and associates of the Lord are completely surrendered souls. Thus, they are transcendental instruments in the hands of the Lord and can be used in any way the Lord desires. The pure devotees also enjoy such pastimes of the Lord because they want to see Him happy. Devotees of the Lord never assert independent individuality. On the contrary, they utilize their individuality in pursuit of the desires of the Lord. And this cooperation of the devotees with the Lord makes a perfect sense of the Lord's pastime. So in this verse in particular, how the Yaduvanshis, after the Kuruvanshis, they depart, then the number of Kuruvanshis, it has also come. एवं संचित्य भगवन् स्वराजे स्थापया धर्मजा नंदयाम आशुषु हृदय sadhunam varta darshaya. Very beautiful words. Lord Shri Krishna, thus thinking to himself, established Maharaj Yudhishthira in the position of the supreme ruler of the world in order to show the ideal of administrative, the ideal of administration on the path of fighting. Uttaray Uttarayam Jite Purva Vamsha Sadhu Abhimanyuna Vamsa Sadhu Abhimayuna Savaidroni Astra Santushta Punarbhagavata Dride. The embryo of Puru's descendant, beget by the great hero Abhimanyu in the womb of Uttara, his wife, was burned by the weapon of Sandora. But later, he was again protected by the Lord. The embryo of Puru's descendant, begotten by the great hero of Himalaya, that is Parikshit, in the womb of Uttara, his wife, was burned by a weapon of the son of Drona. He lost, but later he was again protected by the Lord. The embryonic body of Parikshit, which was forming after Uttara's impregnation by Abhimanyu, the great hero, was burned by the Brahmanas, was burned by the Brahmastra of Ashwathama. But a second body was given by the Lord within the womb. And thus the descendant of Kuru was saved. We all know how Krishna saved Maharaj Parikshit in the womb when he was being attacked by Ashwathama. This incident is a direct proof that the body and the living entity, the spiritual spark, are different. When the living entity takes the shelter in the womb of a woman through the injection of the semen of a man, there is an emulsification of the man's and woman's discharging. Sorry. Yeah, it is there. When the living entity takes shelter in the womb of a woman through the injection of a semen of a man, there is an emulsification of the man and woman's discharges. And thus the body is formed the size of a pea. How the child takes birth in the embryo, Prabhupada is giving the full details. Size of a pea gradually developing into a complete body. But if the developing embryo is destroyed in some way or the other, the living entity has to take shelter in another body, in the womb of another woman. The particular living entity who was selected to be the descendant of Maharaj, Guru, or the Pandavas, was not an ordinary living entity. And by the superior will of the Lord, this language, the particular living entity who was selected to be the descendant of Maharaj Puru or the Pandavas was not an ordinary living entity. And by the superior will of the Lord, he was destined to be the successor of Maharaj Yudhishthir. Therefore, when Ashwathama destroyed the embryo of Maharaj Parikshit, the Lord, by his own internal potency, entered the womb of Uttara by his plenary portion, just to give audience to the would-be Maharaj Parikshit. Who was in great danger. By the penance within the womb, the Lord encouraged the child and gave him complete protection in the new body. By his omnipotency, by the power of omnipresence, he was present both inside and outside the Uttara, and thus members of the Pandava. Okay, I'll stop here. Bring a short class. Exhausted. So this section is talking about how Krishna planned to release the burden of the earth by first removing the Purus and now allowing the Yadus, his own men, to be overwhelmed with time. Hare Krishna. Any discussion or any question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Madam.
Prabhuji, that one understanding how yadus were burdened, Prabhuji, that part, little bit explanation.
How Yadus were burdened? Very good question.
Yes.
Two examples are given. How Yadus were burdened? Who will explain? Yes, Dashilpa.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, the Lord felt the separation from his family members, Prabhuji. It was written that the burden of love,
Oh,
thinking
yeah.
about them, thinking
Are
about
the
them.
Yadus burden of love or burden of beast?
Burden of love, Prabhuji.
So
Thinking
why then they
about
should be removed? If they are burden of love, then why they should be removed? Or why Krishna is planning their, termination? They are saying, if they are burden of love, why they should be killed? Why Krishna is planning? Prabhupada is not writing them burden of love. You see?
Prabhuji, because it was the will of the Lord, because they appear at the will and disappear at the will of the Lord.
No, but where is the need? This is the point. Because Krishna wanted to. Yes, please participate. If they are burden of love, why they have to be eliminated?
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी।
Yes.
प्रभु जी प्रभुपाद इसमें इस purport में लिखते हैं कि 14 में Lord wants the imminent disappearance from the earth.
Yes. Why? What is the reason? The Lord wants good governance. What is the burden on the earth? What was mentioned? It was mentioned, no, population, increase of population is not a burden of on the earth anymore.
Other
The human population, Pradeep, how much is the human population? I am asking you, Pradeep, why are you not answering? What is the percentage of human population? Again, all of you are silent. You are not hearing. Although I am struggling because I have taken medicines, and these medicines are sedative, they bring a lot of sleep. I am struggling to remain awake. But whatever I read, at least something has struck. What is the reason? Yes, Ramya? Boliye, quickly speak.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah,
Prabhuji, in the
little
verse
louder
number
or near the
verse,
microphone.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, in the verse number 14, it is mentioned about two kinds of burden, that is burden of beast and burden of love. And the reason behind and the departure of Kuru dynasty is that all of them were part expansion of Supreme Lord, or they were demigods, so they have to go back to their go back with the Lord. So and Lord also thinks about here also Srila Prabhupada talk about burden of separation. If they remain here, there will be burden of separation, so that they disappear.
There was one important reason given why there will be burden on earth. What is the burden of earth? I am asking that question that you are not answering. What is actually burden? Increase of population is no burden.
Prabhuji, increase of miscreants or non-believer of God are burden.
Dharma glanir. In precise, what is mentioned is the burden is the dharma glanir. Those who do not follow the religious principles, that is the burden on earth. So how do we relate with the Yadus? What is the connection with the Yadus?
Prabhuji, they were indulged in intoxication. After Krishna left, they were indulged in intoxication. And
Were indulged in?
intoxication, Prabhuji.
That is apparent. That is what was said. That they are not in intoxication. The downfall will happen in such a way so that it may look that they were in intoxication. This is what is being mentioned. Who knows the answer? Why Krishna wanted to eliminate them before leaving? Because these are very powerful people and they will not follow anyone else than Krishna. And to whom Krishna selected to be the unrivaled king? Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira. So the Yadavas will not accept the orders of Maharaj Yudhishthira. And there will be a clash in the future. But to avoid that, before Krishna departed, he ensured that the Yadus were destroyed, so that they could not pose any challenge to Maharaj Yudhishthira. You just see to the what extent Krishna thinks about his devotee. And for his welfare, to what extent can Krishna go? Just think. To kill one Bhishma and Drona, Arjuna was refusing. I will not fight, because I will have to kill. Atva swajanam ahave. But Krishna killed his entire dynasty. Why? Just to safeguard one person. Who is that person? Maharaj Yudhishthira. Why? Because he wanted Maharaj Yudhishthira to be the person who will establish them. How this shows the detachment of Krishna. To what extent Krishna is detached. Another amazing quality of Krishna which comes out. Okay, so I will stop here. Anyone else has any other question? We should discuss, we should ask, so that our understanding becomes deeper. श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। जय